the more supply, the lower the cost of power, supply and demand. So the target actually of this committee is to be able to find ways and means to be able to increase the supply and make it easier for investors to come in and put up power plants so that we can lower the cost of electricity. Okay.
Yes, Your Honor. And also, I think also the issue here would be, why are the DUs not contracting? Not so much as the CSP mechanism itself, because it's a good mechanism, but why do the DUs choose to not contract at all? And it depends. Well, you know, each of the DU has its risk appetite, and some of the DUs choose to just purchase from the WESM or just, you know, contract a little bit and then play the market. Obviously, it's their it's their option. But right now, the profile of the DUs, they're not contracting a lot. It's just 50%. So maybe that's something that we can look into.
Yeah.
If the DUs will be mandated to contract more than what is being done now, then that would be one of the solutions, and that would be great. Right now, because there is a secondary price cap, the DUs would rather play the market. And that's also one of the barriers to entry, because automatically there's a cap, my secondary price cap. So that's one of the things also that the banks or the investors are looking at. I mean, you put a cap on certain things. When other markets, it's free. Market behavior dictates it. So it's quite hard. It's a balancing act, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mr. Chair?
Before Honorable Vergara, contract out based on forecast made by the DUs and also of the DOE as to the amount of power supply they need in the coming years? Who decides as to the number or the amount of energy that they need? Is that based on the forecast of the DUs or based on the forecast also of the DOE as to the coming years?
Mr. Chair, there is a PSPP, that's a power development plan per DU. So it's the forecast of the DUs, Mr. Chair.
So your suggestion, ma'am, is to make it mandatory for the DUs to contract out that forecast? Is that it?
Yeah, it did. That forecast is submitted to the DOE, Mr. Chair. And yes, it would be great if they're mandated to contract. Because as an addition, Mr. Chair, I think it would be good for the committee to know that only a few banks, for example, like DBP, there are only a few that would offer a merchant plant program. So we really need a good signal that the DU is mandated to contract. And we know
Yes.
that there are issues on forecasting, but we have to start somewhere.
Yes. Thank you, ma'am. And yes, Honorable Vergara.
Mr. Chair, sorry, I know I'm not supposed to be answering or asking questions, but I just like to say that distribution utilities want a stable source of generating a generator. The reason maybe some are going 50% is because of the RCOA, the Retail Competition and Open Access, where every year we're like bringing it down, and the ideal is eventually households can choose their generator supplier. And so the problem with when you enter into a contract with a generator, there's what you call the minimum offtake. So you have to purchase this power. And if every year they're bringing it down, I mean, now I think they're down now to 500. I don't know, but it's most of the industrial consumers in my district are already going straight to the generating facility. So it's the way EPIRA is evolving, which is what dictates how much the DU is contracting. It's not like they want to play the WESM. They just want to save their customers from high generation rates because they lost certain customers to the retail competitive open access, which is a requirement of the EPIRA. I just like to put that on record, Mr. Chair.
Yes, thank you, Honorable Vergara. And it's these discussions we're going to be able to find the ways and solutions for our energy problems, especially that one of the priorities is to also amend the EPIRA and actually look into ways and means to be able to address all these problems. Thank you, Ma'am Ann, and thank you, Honorable Vergara. proceeding, let me recognize Deputy Minority Leader Presley De Jesus.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Nice to see you back in Committee on Energy, and to my colleagues, and of course to our resource persons. No, I have a question for people, but most of the questions were raised by Kong Ria, Madam Ria, and of course your speaker. But again, Kong Ria said that the reason, Miss Ann said that the reason why the DUs are not contracting only 50%. The problem is, yun nga, tama yung sinabi ni Kong Ria, because of the open access. No, if they contracted at least 90% of the electric cooperatives or the DUs, and then here comes the open access that the DUs has no control about it. Kapag umalis sa amin yan, over-contracting ang mga DUs, especially the electric cooperatives who has no means of, as far as the financial is concerned. No, mag-over-contracting, and then the poor member consumer owners will shoulder or will burden the difference. So yan ang iniiwasan. No, that's why my question to Ms. Ann, no, when it comes to the secondary price cap, you think if this will be removed, will it solve the problem of the price of the generation?
Yes,
Madam
Pipa.
Chair, for Ms. Ann.
Pipa, yes, Ma'am Ann. You're on mute.
There, I'm sorry. I thought I was not on mute. Yes, sir. It will solve the problem. When you remove it will significantly, it will contribute to the solution, because when you remove the price cap, you allow the market to move in itself. So it's like the principle of economics. You just let the market forces dictate, and then your price signals, it will adjust. And then after that, the investors or the generators will take a look. Since the market is behaving accordingly, you will invest. Then you will increase the number of generators, the number of players in the system. The peaking plants will be able to, there are price signals for the peaking plants. Our peaking plants are important. So yes, to just a short answer to your question, it will significantly improve the problem, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, my follow-up question. As you know, that the distribution utilities, they only, most of them, no, they only contract the base load. As we know, that's very important, no. That's the peaking hours. They go to the West M, to our market operators. For them, base load is the most important, no. Kasi nga, if we have extra peaking load, pati if the peaking load will be contracted, the problem is yung open access. So the secondary price cap, I think you're absolutely right. But I think the problem here, as you mentioned, how can we assure that the generator or the investor will construct more, especially in Luzon, if they don't have PSA? So you said that they will not risk, their financial. Because WSM is not guaranteed that this investor will make money, no? So under your pipeline, how many generation for the zone na sa tingin mo that will be open in the next 2 years?
Pipa, Ma'am Ann.
Yeah, sir, I think that to give you an accurate answer to that statistic, the DOE will be able to answer that. I mean, I can only speak for my 28 members, but there are a lot of other power plants
Mr.
that
Chair,
are...
Mr. Chair, usually, Mr. Chair, if I may interrupt, usually before they go to DOE, they usually ask the PIPA rin if there's available ba, if the market is, if they can open another construction of generation. Ms. Ann, Madam Chair.
Yeah, but Deputy Minority President, since we also have a
DOE.
representative from DOE, if we can direct the question to ASEC Mario Marasigan, if
Okay,
ASEC
Mr.
Mario
Chair.
is here. DOE, if you can answer the inquiry of Deputy Minority Leader Presley De Jesus.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and good morning po sa ating lahat. For the question po ni Honorable Congressman Presley, when we can provide for the list of committed and indicative projects. So ito po yung guide natin na nagsaserve kung ilan po yung mga offered na mga private sector na mga projects nila that are being geared towards yun nga po yung kasi ginawa po nating very transparent yung ating distribution development plan as well as the PSPP, yung power supply procurement program ng bawat DU by posting those information in the DOE website. So as we approve those plans and programs, pinopost po yan. And that gives an idea po para sa ating mga investors in developing or coming up with their projects. Also, para naman po sa renewable energy, I wish to highlight po yung ating green energy auction program. Ito po ay definitely hindi dictated kagad yung market, alam natin, but we already identify alin yung mga projects na who can offer a specific price for their project. And we see the success naman po ng ating green energy auction program. Doon po sa ating target na 2,000 megawatts, halos konti lang po ang hindi natin na-fulfill. It's almost 1,996 megawatts na contract natin under that program. So, meron pa rin po tayong programa na kagaya na nasabi ni Ms. Ann, transmission is one of the concerns as well. Kaya naman po for renewable again, nagkaroon tayo ng study together with the donor institution, yung tinatawag nating competitive renewable energy zones. And that those identified renewable energy zones provide signals po sa ating mga investors kung saan yung mga planta. So what we keep track is the list of committed and indicative projects and how these projects progress. And we will submit po this complete list of committed and indicative projects, particularly in the next 10 years. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, Honorable Presley.
Thank you, Asek Marasigan. Deputy Minority Leader Presley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No, maybe this will be my last question. As Ms. Ann Montelibano said a while ago, Mr. Chair, that removing the secondary price cap will have more competitive. It will bring down the price, no? But years ago, Mr. Chair, if you remember, may collusion between the WSM. So if we remove this secondary price cap, do you have a guarantee that it will be competitive enough, really? Because for me, the law of supply and demand, as long as we have more generation available, dun talaga mumura. But I want to hear it from Ms. Ann Montelibano na yung assurance niya, if we remove the secondary price cap, there will be a healthy competition at bababa ang presyo. Mr. Chair?
Yes, but DML, that's alleged collusion. An alleged
Okay, the alleged collusion.
Yes.
Alleged.
Pipa,
Stand
Ma'am
corrected, Mr. Chair. The alleged collusion.
Mr. Chair, thank you very much for clarifying that. I was supposed to say that as well. Sir, grabe naman po kayo. Alleged collusion, hindi po totoo yan.
Yes, ma'am. I stand corrected. Alleged collusion.
Grabe naman po.
So,
Okay.
again,
Thank
ma'am,
you.
Mr. Chair, my mistake. My apology.
Okay.
Alleged collusion.
Yeah, alleged collusion. And you know, sir, just I can guarantee. I mean, we are an association and it's so difficult to get my members also to agree on certain things, much as well collude on certain matters. So yes, I can definitely say that we are all in unison that if you remove the secondary price cap, that's a good signal to all of us to just be as competitive as possible and give the best price and make sure that we build the plants and make sure that we have our contracts. You remove the secondary price cap, our peaking plants, who are currently suffering right now. I have members that have peaking plants. They're suffering right now. They are in danger. They're thinking of, not operating at all. And we need peakers in the system, not just baseload plants. We definitely need peakers in the system because if we need those peakers to come online immediately and to support the system, then that's their role. That's the role that they play. Each type of technology, each type of plant has a role to play, and we need more peakers in the system. I think I've said that a long time ago, 3-4 years ago, in both the Senate and Congress. So if you remove the secondary price cap, it will give a signal to our peakers that, yay, yes, we can proceed to invest. There is hope. We can earn. And it would be profitable to put up a peaking plant in the Philippines, sir.
Thank you, Mr.
Ma'am.
Chair.
DML Presley, any more questions?
Yes, as far as people, siguro last na lang yun. I have a question in NPC. But again, my apology and for that statement I made. Again, Mr. Chair. But again, the secondary price cap, dyan kasi kami kinakabahan, no? Especially in the DUs. No? But with the commitment of the PIPA, Ms. Ann Montibel, the chairman, I subscribe with you, Ma'am Am, na sana ganyan. Because at the end of the day, all of us, we pay ang ating electricity bill. So, sino bang gusto magbayad ng mataas? Again, thank you very much. Mr. Chair, moving forward.
Sir, sorry, one last, yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Wag po kayong mag-alala, pero kailangan ko lang i-clarify na syempre, we all need all the processes and mechanisms to work together. One of which lang is the secondary price cap. As sinabi nga ni Asek Mario, meron tayong mga iba-ibang markets na kailangan rin ilagay in place. So lahat po yan tulong-tulong sa pag-apekto ng pagbaba ng prices ng electricity at makakatulong po sa DU. So kung lahat po yan in place, yung mga futures market natin, yung sinatawag na derivatives market, renewable energy market, yung AS, yung pag-contract po ng ancillary services ng maayos ng NGCP. Lahat po yan, parang domino effect na. So not just one solution to the prices, but all possible solutions to decrease electricity prices po. That's it. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, that would be one last question from Deputy Minority Leader Presley Desus.
Yeah, for the PIPA, maybe last question, but for PSALM and NPC, siguro I have only 2 each.
We should just do the second round,
Okay.
DML Presley.
So,
Thank you.
before I go to NPC, again, siguro we will file a bill, no, for removing the secondary price cap, because what I heard from Ms. Ann talaga, it will be beneficial to all of us. So, Ms. Ann, you can assure us that we will file that the soonest, ma'am. Thank you. For NPC, Mr. Chair, it involves the SPAG, as you know, SPAG. Yan yung mga sa island natin. And under RA 9136, they are the one mandated for missionary electrification. As you know, the problem with Oriental Mindoro, Occidental Mindoro, ay nag-short ang kanilang funding because ang kanilang forecasting from 35 pesos, it became 70 pesos. So now, my question is, will that be continue yung pagpopondo nila even though the crude oil or the oil is too high, Mr. Chair?
That would be the last question for DML Presley. And can we ask NPC Attorney Melchor to answer that?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, and to the Honorable Congressman Jesus. Just to answer that, yes, it's a continuing problem because the prices of fuel are very volatile at this time. But as we have said, there are 2 aspects that affects our fuel, the fuel price increase in SPAG operations. Number 1 is our fuel requirements for our plants and our payment to the fuel requirements of the NPPs, which is part of the UCME subsidy. So if ever this spike in fuel prices will stop, then our ballooning deficit for this payment for fuel suppliers and the NPP subsidy will also be mitigated. As of this time, we're trying to address the shortfall. We are asking our board for additional remedies, and In fact, recently DBM has already allowed us availment of prior subsidies, which somehow ease our problem of fuel suppliers. The remaining issue right now is our supposed deficit in the payment of the NTP subsidies, because we are lacking very much in trying to be current in our payables with them. So we have written several stakeholders, including the Honorable ERC, to help, at least help us augment our current deficit in the payment of the UCMB.
Mr. Chair, follow up na lang, very short, if I may.
Yes, please
With your
proceed.
permission. Okay. So you guarantee us that there will be no shutdown by the supplier in these spot areas. Sinabi mo kasi nagkakausap na kayo. So do you guarantee that, Mr. Chair?
Attorney Melchor?
Mr. Chair, ang hirap po mag-guarantee talaga if the situation is very flexible. But what we want to assure is all government approach is being undertaken by those affected by this problem. And of course, we are exerting all effort to avoid any plant shutdown. That's one thing that we can say. The others, well, we need the cooperation of the other stakeholders here, because it is not only one problem. Remember, there's also a problem of the NPPs, not only of the subsidies. So all this should be addressed in a one government approach, and we've been exerting efforts to address the same. Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. For any additional questions, DML, let's just proceed
Yes.
for the second round for any.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll go for the second round, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the time.
Thank you. And then proceeding, may I now recognize Vice Chair Jeffrey Konghun? Vice Chair Konghun is there? Is Honorable Vergara
I'm
willing?
still here, Mr. Chair.
Yes, are you intending to join the round two of questioning?
If it's okay,
Sure.
Mr. Chair.
Of course, we still have time. But since Vice Chair Konghun is not responding yet, we can actually proceed with Ma'am Ria Vergara.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to ask about the missionary electrification. And right now, the universal charge in our bills is like 0.29 centavos per kilowatt hour, of which 0.1561 is for missionary electrification. Does the NPC, it's the NPC that's in charge of missionary electrification, Mr. Chair, is that right?
Yes, can you also ask Attorney Melchor?
Yes, we are responsible for the missionary electrification function in the remote islands, Mr. Chair, yes.
So, sir, Mr. Attorney, do you foresee this universal charge going up, or it'll just be constant, not 0.1561? Or are there still other areas that still need power, so we might see an increase in this missionary electrification rate?
Attorney Melchor?
Yes, to answer that in a context of covering all those that are unserved and underserved areas. And normally, when we go to these areas, it requires the subsidy of the UCME. And that's one possible effect on the increase of the UCME. But as time goes on, when private sector will come in, it could also reduce the UCME when the private sector will now carry the burden of supplying the power in those areas that are affected, that are fully served and will be privatized. So it could be a balancing situation, Mr. Chair, depending on how many investors will be coming in the privatized areas and how many unserved and underserved areas that will still be electrified.
So, Mr. Chair, I guess just to have a more specific question, at this point, Attorney, do you have any application with the ERC to increase or decrease the missionary electrification rate that we are currently passing on to our customers?
Attorney Melchor?
Yes, Mr. Chair, Honorable Congresswoman, yes, we have several applications, but those applications are petitions to recover our costs at this time. And we have several. We can provide you the case numbers, Mr. Chair. And basically, these are just to recover the costs that have been incurred in the previous years and this past few months. And we are asking ERC to at least give us that relief for us also to address our ballooning deficit for this current UCME and fuel supply problem, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, could you give us a ballpark figure, Attorney Melchor, how much this increase is on top of the existing 0.15,
Attorney Melchor?
more or less?
We have pending petition with our true-up application, Mr. Chair, that has an average impact of 4 centavos. At least 4 centavos, yes.
4 centavos. Thank you, Mr. Chair. My next question is to ASEC Marisigan. Is the DOE circular requiring NGCP to provide 100% firm ancillary service still being implemented? Is this something that you're requiring of NGCP?
Asek Mario?
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chair, Honorable Vergara. Yes, our department circular pertaining to the ancillary services requires 100% ancillary service for our system operator until the operation of our reserve market, wherein the firm contract requirement for our SO will be downgraded to 50%. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, Honorable Vergara.
So you mean, Mr. Chair, ASEC Marasigan, you will require NGCP to provide 100% firm ancillary service?
Yes, ma'am.
Have you computed how much that's going to affect the rate?
At the moment po, kasi we are still working on the final figures that they have to contract with. Hindi pa po final yung CSP ng ng ating system operator. But we had initial simulation of the data, and we will provide po the committee of our initial simulation on how much would be the cost of having 100% firm contracts for our ancillary services.
Yes, because ASEC, I'm sure you're aware that's gonna increase their transmission rate. I mean, it's gonna hit the roof. I mean, right now, Secretary Lotilla is already talking about demand side management as the warm months come in to expect, rotating brownouts. And so if we're gonna demand that firm ancillary services for NGCP, that's more power that will be taken out of our grid as reserve power. So I sincerely hope that you really study this proposal, because we don't want to be paying high rates to make sure there's reserve power, but we have rotating brownouts because there's not enough for the distribution utilities in the summer months. Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's all, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Vergara. And for the information of the members, I would like to ask Asek Mario just to explain to everyone what do you mean by firm as to the ancillary service, so that they would understand what why the DOE is asking that the ancillary service be firm and non-firm. Please,
Thank you very much. Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Ang concern ho kasi natin pagka mga non-firm contracts, ang actual dispatch ng mga planta used as ancillary services depends on the requirement. So part of these generators may now compete in the energy market. So nagkakahalo ho. So hindi natin fully identified which plant is purely serving for ancillary services, especially at a particular interval in our market. So hindi natin kagad malaman na pag nagkaroon tayo ng shortfall or may problema tayo sa grid, alin yung kulang, yung reserve o yung energy market. With the firm contracts ngayon, we can easily separate what are the power plants or how much of the power plants are providing ancillary services and how much are involved in the energy market. This can also help us identify whether a power generating facility is in ay meron tamang power supply agreements with the distribution utilities, because we cannot trace all of these agreements. But as I mentioned, if I may mention, Mr. Chair, the key to that also is the establishment po and operationalization of our reserve market, because the reserve market now will provide an option for our generators who are qualified to provide ancillary services to dedicate their generation or their availability in the reserve market. They have the option. So we will be able to identify whether we have sufficient ancillary services vis-a-vis ano yung requirement ng market natin. Aside from that, this will help our potential investors to identify which market they should participate. So magkakaroon tayo ng parang avenue, opening up of the avenue, kung saan yung specific na generators gusto nilang mag-invest. That's all, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much po.
Thank you, ASEC. But as to firm, ASEC, can you confirm if it's a firm contract, then kahit hindi gamitin yung pang-ancillary nila, kasama yan sa bayad? And I think that's the reason why Honorable Vergara is asking if you guys could compute actually yung impact niyan sa magiging electricity rate. Tama po ba, ASEC Mario?
Yes, tama po. But basically, ang primary na babayaran natin doon would be the capacity fee of the generation facility. But once they are being used as ancillary, then saka natin babayaran both the capacity and the energy that they will provide. I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, I lost the audio.
Can you hear me? Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
Yes, as I was just saying that if we can also study the possibility that maybe a certain percentage of the generation company supply would be reserved for ancillary service. So
Yes,
let's
Mr.
say
Chair.
5% of their generating supply can be reserved instead of doing firm contracts, so as not to be too heavily burden our consumers also.
Yes, Mr.
That can
Chair.
be studied also.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. We have seen that in some jurisdictions, no? That a certain facility, nire-require nila talaga a certain percentage to serve as a replacement power or ancillary services. So the power plant itself provides what it requires. Yes, Mr. Chair, we will conduct a study on that. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, ASEC Mario. Before we proceed to DML President De Jesus, let me just acknowledge the presence of Honorable Isidro D. Lumayag and Honorable Zia Alonto Addiong. Yes, Deputy Minority President.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question will be directed to Pisang, to Attorney Irene. If you remember, Attorney Irene, Mr. Chair, that the last hearing we passed the resolution extending the life of Pisang. Unfortunately, it didn't reach the Senate. But my question is, do we still need, Attorney Irene, the extension of the lifespan of Pisang?
Mr. Chair, honorable members of the Committee on Energy, we are actually now getting a more concrete direction coming from the Pisang board, composed of the DOE, DOF, NEDA, DBM, DTI, and DOJ, in order to ascertain what is now the direction. The direction coming from the Pisang board during the previous administration was to extend, because the idea was to rehabilitate Agus and Pulangi, and also so that we can continue to manage the contracts that would go on beyond June 2026. However, now we are still determining whether they're going to prioritize the rehabilitation of Agus and Pulangi. We also would like to get direction from DOF as regards the capacity of the national government to absorb any remaining financial obligations by June 2026. But Mr. Chair, rest assured that once we know the direction as to whether there is a need to extend PISAM's life, we will update the committee, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Attorney Garcia. DM Presley De Jesus.
Mr. Chair, this is very critical, for the lifespan of PISAM. Why? Because there are still remaining assets to be, that are in the disposal of PISAM. At the same time, I'm worried about the Angus Pulangi. I think I remember the last hearing when you were still the chairman, Mr. Chair, in Committee on Energy. We asked them to make a statement for not privatizing the Angus Pulangi because right now, Mr. Chair, the the Mindanao, as you can see from the presentation of Attorney Irene, ang baba sa Mindanao, no? It's only 2 pesos, and in Visayas 3 pesos, and in Luzon, Luzon, as a lion's share when it comes to the consumption, 4 pesos. Ang tanong ko, how come there is a big disparity between the Mindanao and Luzon? Why? Because of the availability ba, Mr. Chair?
Attorney Garcia.
Mr. Chair, the difference in there are a lot of factors in setting the TOU rates. But one of the factors would be availability. And also the age of the plant and the profile of the plant. There are other different factors that come into play when the ERC sets the TOU rate. But the plans of the National Power Corporation, which were transferred to NPC in terms of recovery po, mga old plans na po yan. So na-recover na natin. And so the TOU rates are substantially lower when you compare it to the amount of TOU rates in Luzon. So, yun po ang profile ng energy generation facility ng PISAM at the moment. And also, yung Agus and Pulangi po kasi, it's able to bring down the cost in Mindanao because there's also oversupply now, as we know, no? If there is interconnection sana, if we can pursue that interconnection, then that oversupply could benefit the Luzon and Visayas grid.
Thank you, Attorney Garcia. DM Presley.
Mr. Chair, so that brings me to the next question that, next time maybe, Mr. Chair, that we need the NGCP rito, no? Because of the interconnection. Even the submarine cable for Mindoro, especially Mindoro in Occidental Mindoro, Oriental Mindoro, and even in your hometown, Mr. Chair, that you're being separated from the grid. So, I think that's the one solution here, no? Aside from the secondary price cap, which we will file a bill. I think the NGCP must provide really roadmap, no? How to expedite the connection, the connectivity between the SPAG and to the main grid. Kasi I heard the last time it will take 9 years. That's unacceptable. So I'm not blaming NGCP. No, this is energy is a family that we need to help each other. So, siguro, Mr. Chair, no, the next question is, how many electric cooperatives that under contract with the PISAM as of today? As you mentioned, there are no more available power in PISAM. I just want to know how many existing electric cooperatives under contract in PISAM.
Attorney Garcia.
At the moment, sir, we have 59 CSEEs. 59, sir.
So will that be a long term or just a short term? It varies from 1 year to 2 years, or?
Yes, sir. You're correct, sir. It varies from 1 to 2 years, and the principal consideration for that is the need of the electric cooperative. So it's really them that initiates, and they tell us how much they would need and for how long.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, no, I think Attorney Adi is correct when he said that. That's why my question again, a sort of manifestation. Maybe if there are available power would be given first to the electric cooperatives. As you know, electric cooperatives are non-stock, non-profit. And also at the same time, those distribution utilities that are small also in the rural areas, no? Huwag na natin i-concentrate sa Metro Manila because they have enough, no? Unlike the electric cooperatives na talagang nangangailangan, especially now, ang taas ng presyo. So, again, Mr. Chair, thank you for giving us the opportunity. Maybe if there's no more questions, second round, maybe in the third round, or maybe in the next hearing. Again, thank you very much, Attorney Irene, and of course, to my chairman, my idol. Thank you very much.
Thank you, DM Presley. If DM Presley wishes to question NGCP, we still have another hearing later in the afternoon, and NGCP is actually part of that hearing, all distribution utilities. So if there's no other questions from the members, just one last question as to the yellow and red alerts that we experienced last week. Just like to ask Ma'am Ann Montalibano, because I think she said that the reasons why the 4 shutdowns happened was 4 of the 7 power plants. There was a line trip in 4 of the 7 power plants. Is that correct?
Sorry,
Ma'am, you're on mute.
I was on mute. Yes. Yes, Mr. Chair, you are definitely correct. The ERC confirmed this as well. Out of the 7 plants that were on forced outage, 4 of the 7 plants, namely
Was due to?
1 and 2, Masinloc 2 and 3, was due to the line tripping of NGCP.
How about the other 3, ma'am?
The other 3, which is Calaca, Dinginin, and Quezon Power, those are technical in nature, sir. And the DOE and ERC are currently coordinating with those plants as to verifying the technical reason for their outage. But 1,900 megawatts of the 3,400 capacity was out because of the line tripping of NGCP, sir.
Okay, but as to the 1,100 megawatts, which was due to technical reasons, can I just ask how old are the plants which had the forced outages?
The Dinginin is new, sir. QPPL. I'll get back to you as to the exact age of the plant, sir.
Yes, and as to also the other, actually, if you can, or I'll just ask the DOE, ask Mario Marasigan to furnish me that, furnish me those details as to the 7 plants that had forced outages. But also, ma'am, can I ask if you know how long were they able to get back online?
Oh,
That's
okay.
my question.
Okay, sir. So this is another medyo I'll make it super brief, 'di ba? NGCP kasi they say that their systems they're able to get back. I think yesterday in the Senate hearing, I recall that President Almeda said that they were able to get online faster, right? But for power plants, it's not the same. We have to check our systems because nag-trip nga siya, sir. So I took note of this because I had to understand also the nature on how our generators get back online. It's not as easy for us to get back online kasi may cool down po yan for coal plants. Tapos they're going to check po kung naapektuhan po yung systems nila. So baka pwede pong nasira dahil nag-trip kami. So hindi po ganun kabilis. But I think for Suwal Unit 2 and Unit 1, they were online Monday, 12 o'clock and 1:42 p.m. For Masinloc 1, my note says that they were online Monday at 12:39 a.m.
I'm sorry, those are all coal plants?
Yes. It takes considerable time kasi, sir.
Like how many hours, ma'am?
More than 6, definitely.
From the time that they trip.
From the time of shutdown or trip,
Yes.
it takes more than 6 hours for local plants to restart. Maybe more than a day, depending on the nature of the plant, sir. So, kasi we have to. The technical people told me during a briefing on Monday that it takes time to check if there are damages that the plant incurred during the time that it shut down or it tripped. And then we need time to prep for synchronization to the grid again. So it's not as easy as a switch or a fuse box. Now we turn on the switch and then we're back online. So there's a lot of process that needs to be done before we go online and get synchronized back to the grid, sir.
Yes, ma'am. But I just wanted to know because at the end of the day, as to the purpose that we would want to give the consumers is that we want to operate efficiently. So I just wanted to find out from the time that a certain power plant shuts down, how long is we can say an efficient amount of time for them to get back online? Because these are the things that we should look at, and I think DOE should look at also as a policy to be able to find out how long certain power plants go back online. Because if, let's say, DOE says a policy after study that a certain power plant, a coal plant, how many megawatts, gets back online after a first shutdown, let's say around 10 hours, and then maybe in a certain situation, they got back online after 20 hours, 25 hours. So we have to find out how come they didn't go back online as soon as possible so that we could actually try to not go into those yellow and red alerts. And as to the supply, that they are given the grid, we would be able to give that supply already. Can you just imagine if a certain power plant can actually go back or get online or be online in 10 hours, and then it gets online after 20 hours? Then I think that should ring bells already, sound the alarms. How come it took them 20 hours? So for what happened in a couple of days ago as to the yellow and red alerts, just want to direct this to the DOE. If you can give me data as to the power plants that had forced shutdowns, and also how many hours it took them to get back online. And if I can also ask DOE ASEC, do you actually have any study as to the type of plant and how long they can get back online after a shutdown? Let's say for a coal, for gas, and for any other power plant. Do you have that study actually?
If I may, Mr. Chair.
Yes, please, ASEC.
Yeah, as far as yung cooling down and also startup of power technologies, differentiated po yan.
Mhm.
And we can provide you with the data. But as far as the incident that happened last Sunday, extending until Monday, we have solicited information already directly from the power plants. So we can provide you with the matrix of what exact time that these power plants switch off or incurred emergency shutdown, and also the time and date that they were able to get online and synchronize to the grid.
Yes, but do you have actually like a study already made that for a certain type of plant, they can actually get back online for a certain number of hours? Because I think that's going to be one of the problems, because we always talk about efficiency, especially with the old plants. Definitely, they're more inefficient than the new plants. Even if you maintain them, how many times, the wear and tear on the plants is really affects their efficiency. So I believe that's one of the things that we have to look at, because we require as to the supply that we have in our grid. We know it's not that much, especially in the Luzon grid. So as to their time, how long it'll take them to get back online, I think we have to really focus on that also.
Yes, yes, Mr. Chair. We will. We don't have a complete or firm study on that, but we will try to give the committee information regarding that, because these are specific on a per technology basis.
Yes.
It depends on the ramping up and ramping down capabilities. But I wish to emphasize that for the power plants, for the 4 power plants that were involved in the incidents this week, they were on emergency shutdown. It's not a normal operating procedure. That's why some of these power plants has to do a complete rechecking. Kasi kung nagkaroon ho ng maliliit na diferensya dun sa kanilang emergency shutdown, then they have to have corrective measures immediately. So it can be shown naman po kasi by the hour ang monitoring namin when that incident happened. So we can identify talaga kung sino yung mga planta na nagkaroon ng minor problems but it took them time to really restart the entire system. Especially po, kumbaga kambal na project yan like Masinloc, dalawang facility yan within dalawang power plant within one facility and then ganun din po yung sa Suwan. So we definitely we will provide you with this information, Mr. Chair.
Yes, thank you. Second, yes.
If I may expand, you have mentioned kanina what happens kung nagkaroon ng extended outage yung isang planta na nagkaroon. Meron na pong ERC resolution pertaining to that. Meron na pong designated and allowable time kung magkaroon ka ng forced outage. On a year per contract basis, nakalagay talaga doon kung ilan lang yung allowable forced outages mo.